Story 1. Putting this at the top because people seem to be missing it. Any of these can be warning signs of poor mental health but do not mean anything in isolation. If you start experiencing maybe 7 out of 10 or more, then it is probably quite severe depression or trauma. Go and see a doctor. Online forums are not your physician. If you go through this like a checklist, it does not mean that you do or do not have any conditions. This post is asking for warning signs. This is just a list of things where, when many are present, it would be a single warning sign in response to the question. Isolates excessively. Sleeps all the time or not at all. Overeating for stress relief or not eating at all to the point it is impacting physical health. Less attention to personal hygiene. Less attention to medical needs. Temporary but regular twitching or shaking episodes with emotional grief, several minutes at a time, regularly occurring, typically head or body, not temperature related, no stimulants taken, no seizure history. These can have many causes but are something to consider. Even neurodivergence can cause these. Over-apologizing or assuming they did something wrong. Low sense of self, purpose, or motivation. Can be seen in effort at work, social situations, or hobbies. Stopping hobbies. Total silence on mental health when there is clearly something going on, or reaching out about it, both are breaking points. To be clear, any of these can be warning signs of poor mental health but do not mean anything in isolation. If you start experiencing maybe 7 out of 10 or more, then it is probably quite severe depression or trauma. For example, shaking can be an indicator of post-traumatic stress disorder or severe stress, and isolating can be anything from just being antisocial to depression. Do not see one thing on the list and panic. If you are experiencing many of these, it is a good sign to see a doctor if you can. Regarding shaking or twitching, this is not about very short twitches infrequently. If it is a regular occurrence lasting several minutes at a time and is still temporary, or you find yourself shivering for several minutes at a time, again temporary, with your head but you are not cold, it is usually indicative of some kind of trauma or stress response. There are other causes as well. If it is permanent, happening literally nonstop, it is probably something else. Doctors, online search engines, and artificial intelligence models are not substitutes for a real doctor. Internet strangers cannot accurately diagnose you. If you have concerns based on any of the things you read here, please see a doctor or at the very least speak to a trusted friend or colleague. Story 2. One subtle thing I have noticed, and maybe you have too, is when someone starts pulling back from little things they used to care about. For example, they stop texting first or cancel plans more than usual with, "I am just tired," as the reason. Not dramatic stuff, just kind of fading a bit. Story 3. When someone suddenly changes from being very depressed and stressed to acting cheerful and carefree and doing favors for everyone, it is a big red flag. Not that I could have done anything, but my old boss suddenly did not really care about work being done. Bought me lunch for no reason, seemed really happy and laid back, then committed suicide later that day. Story 4. I was not supposed to relate to most of these replies. I am trying to improve myself, but most of the time I genuinely do not see any point. Story 5. Their sense of time becomes shortened. It becomes much harder to see yourself 5 years in the future achieving any goals as depression and suicidal ideation begin. Soon it becomes okay to ask, where will I be in 1 year? If it gets really bad, it narrows down to a month, then a week. When you are ready to die and fighting for bare minimum survival, you are counting days. The mind becomes twisted at that point, desperate for anything to get you just one day further. It is sad how rarely that act of desperation is reaching out for help when that might be the last thing left to save you. Story 6. I have to force myself to care about anything. I don't do fun activities anymore. I work, clean, and look after my boys. It's all pretty routine, except for my fun and loving interactions with my children. I think all my energy goes to my boys, and everything else is just going through the motions. That was not subtle, sorry. Story 7. Personally, I know I am struggling when I am suddenly mad at everyone. Once, I walked into art class late, and my teacher said, "Get to class on time." I said, "I tried," loudly, and he took me out and asked if I was okay. Story 8. Their eyes will not shine or match their facial expressions. Talking with a flat, deflated voice when previously sounding vocally happy. Story 9. when they start giving their belongings away. My friend gave us instruments in January, saying it was to make room for the nursery. Then, a couple of months later, it was a filing cabinet full of his childhood comics. He said the same thing, needing room for the baby. After he took his life and we helped clear his house, we realized there was plenty of room. He wanted us to have his special items. It still breaks me when I see them in my house. I miss you, buddy, and I'm sorry we didn't see the signs in hindsight. I will love you forever. Story 10. Everyone is different. Some people seem very happy and laugh a lot, but they are actually on the edge. Story 11. If you mean depression and burnout, been there, done that. Irritable. Cancels plans or can't keep up with plans. Changes to their overall outlook. Like others said, whoever they are when they start becoming the opposite of that. One that I noticed and still affects me is my memory. He used to be great. I could stay on top of everything and remember most things people told me. Now, even over 2 years later with therapy, medication, and just being in a better place overall, if I don't write it down, I lose it. My memory is poor now, mainly because of that. Story 12. Overworking, but then hiding or sleeping as soon as they get home or to a safe spot. Often, they know what is coming and are hiding from it. Speaking from experience here, when the stop happens, it is like the world has fallen apart and they have lost control of everything. The work part is all about being in control and having something that they can control. It was the final straw for me. Close friends recognized it and stepped in, thankfully. Story 13. What you can see is different from spending time, and different mental health issues express themselves differently. Here are a few signs. Stop taking care of themselves. During conversation, they lose their train of thought constantly. They do not sleep at regular times, if at all. They say things that are not connected to what you are saying, but they do repeat themselves. Story 14. People who are isolating. Depression makes you isolate, and then the guilt you feel for knowing you should ask for help keeps you isolated if you do not learn to counteract it. Story 15. When someone starts mistreating the people who love them most, the closer you are, the more they push or punish you, often because you are a mirror to their pain. Story 16. Messy depression room. I used to sleep with laundry and a lot of clutter and food on my bed for weeks at a time. It took a great deal of willpower to clean up. Story 17. Angry all the time is a symptom of many types of mental illness and is often misunderstood, especially for people with depression. Story 18. My signs for people close to me to offer help are when I drop my hobbies and interests, my sleep pattern goes irregular, I nap excessively, I avoid making decisions whenever possible, particularly small day-to-day things like, what shall we eat for dinner? Eventually, I withdraw and become a functional zombie who goes to work and returns home again. After a lifetime of depression, I am pretty easy to read. Ironically, I am generally the last person to notice. Story 19. This is from personal experience, so I do not know if others could see it, but I felt like I could not smile as big. I felt like when I would smile, it was just dull. It did not feel real, like a muscle reflex and not from the soul anymore. Story 20. They become difficult to be around. Not enjoyable company and poor hygiene. Anything more specific depends on the mental illness they are dealing with. It could be negative self-talk, drama, overthinking, lack of energy, anger issues, or other challenges. Story 21. For everyone who is experiencing some, many, or all of the signs mentioned here, this is your sign to reach out to someone. You might not want to. You may think it is too much effort or worry that you would be bothering someone. Or maybe you just do not understand what is happening and believe it will get better. Or perhaps you do not care enough to try. Try to find someone you love or contact a suicide hotline, because you are either there or not far from it. If you are in this situation, there is nothing to lose by making the call. You can come out of where you are now, even if you do not believe or want to believe you can. There are people who care that you live, even if you do not believe it. Almost 4 years ago, I hit bottom. The reason I had not tried to commit suicide for the last decade was no longer there. I had several people around me who cared about me, but I did not see them as reasons to live. I was that deep. I was focused on the negative and once again found only reasons to stop living and foresaw only emotional pain if I continued. There was no reason to keep living, so I tried to end my life and failed. I was found by two people who did care about me. It took a long time to come out of that situation, and I still have episodes I must deal with, but I am glad I was not successful. There is someone, somewhere who loves you and wants you to be alive. You may not even know them, but there are many good, loving people out there. When you get the help you need, you will see that your life has value regardless of what anyone else thinks. Story 22. Starting to give away their belongings, making arrangements for their things. Excessive spending. Not leaving the house. Pacing a lot. Suddenly happy out of nowhere, which often means they have made a decision to end their suffering. No longer showing emotions. Story 23. They stop doing the things they love. They stop talking to people and hanging out with friends. Their moods fluctuate. They can lash out or cry easily. Story 24. I don't know, but this is happening to me right now. My face and body start twitching when I talk to them. Every conversation becomes stressful. I blame corporate for this. Is this a sign my brain is losing control? Story 25. But do we really care to save the person if it is inconvenient for us? Many people see signs of someone who is losing their battle and do nothing. They only say something after it happens. Doing something can be emotionally taxing and often requires self-sacrifice, such as money for counseling and shelter, without expecting anything in return from the person in need, which many will not give freely. I have shown signs. My signs are apparent. But no one will put their money where their mouth is. Seeing signs is easy. It is actively intervening and personally sacrificing to help that person that is hard. Maybe just let natural selection work. Story 26. Silence. When someone suddenly stops expressing their emotions and seems to be fine, most of the time it is apathy and giving up, not a sign that the person has overcome their struggles. To me, that is a sign they have given up and are surrendering to the pain. Story 27. This is difficult for me. I had a severe depressive episode, likely caused by my new medications, and I had to go missing in action so I would not bring down the people I interact with. I have not had an episode this bad in a long time, so it scared me a bit. I mentioned it to someone I thought would understand, but immediately felt guilty and decided I would not reply until I felt better. Sadly, I did not feel better until recently and came back to them saying no more fake tears. I was worried. I was not faking or trying to get attention. I was just being honest. It reminded me of my situation to read that hobbies are the first to go when I shared drawing as a hobby with this friend. Story 28. An otherwise neat and tidy person who does not care much anymore about cleaning up. Indoor plants slowly start to wilt because they are not being cared for. Story 29. Random changes in their behavior, however rational they seem, can often indicate an impending breakdown. Story 30. I am temporarily struggling with my mental health due to withdrawal from stopping an antidepressant. I have found myself wanting to get into fights, mostly verbal, with people. I feel very irritable and experience sudden bursts of anger. Story 31. The state of their home. If you walk into a home in utter disarray, your thought should be, how bad is bad that this is considered normal? Story 32. Giving away valued possessions. People tend to give away things they care about when they have made a decision to end things. Story 33. If someone has not already said this, withdrawing emotionally and physically, always excusing themselves from social activities, and irregular changes in mood are common signs. There are various ways people react when suffering severe mental health issues, but isolation is very common. Story 34. They stop trusting their own rhythms. They second-guess things that used to come naturally, such as their creative intuition, instincts about people, or how to structure their day. Story 35. One I have not seen yet is talking rapidly and probably more than normal. Also, obsession with one thing which can look like dedication or extra effort. Grand ideas, goals, and projects, even delusions of grandeur. Story 36. Self-care, but in a way that is dangerous and especially when it is out of character. They stop showering, brushing their teeth, have trouble sleeping or sleep all day, do not eat, and experience major weight loss or weight gain. If they are so down that they cannot take care of themselves anymore, it will reinforce a feeling of worthlessness or a lack of support from the people around them. Story 37. When mental illness becomes visible in a person's appearance, it often indicates a serious struggle. People can hide many symptoms of mental illness, but when signs such as looking ill or exhausted, poor hygiene, changes in speech patterns, or rapid weight loss or gain become noticeable, it usually signals a difficult battle. Story 38. Nihilism for me. I do not even care to eat, let alone socialize or do anything else. I do not see the point. I cannot afford to eat what I want anyway. Why go to a doctor to extend my life when it is just misery most of the time? Story 39. Cutting off all of their hair, especially women, and not just cut short but buzzed with clippers. Story 40. Not sure if this one is on here, but one way I notice is that their stories never fully make sense. They start switching through faces, but the mask never seems to come off until they are alone. Each mask shows a different side to a different person, protecting those they can while also struggling to reach out for help. Story 41. Changes in mood, behavior, and cognitive function, as well as physical symptoms and social withdrawal, are important to recognize. Identifying these signs early can be crucial for seeking timely help and support. Story 42. This may well get buried, and that is okay. I have spent much of my life from as early as 5 to 7 years old dealing with very poor mental health. I am a 35-year-old male for context. When I was 12, I made the decision to kill myself once I got home from school. Through an unexpected turn of events, I never made it home that day. Regardless, I have spent much of my life running from the people who know me, communities that knew me, and in every way possible, finding ways to isolate myself or give myself unfamiliar surroundings where no one knew me or who I used to be. Along the way, I have struggled with alcoholism and low-level drug addiction at times, as well as a full addiction to work. They were all means of escaping and isolating. While a work addiction may not seem harmful or destructive, it absolutely can be. Since I started working full-time when I was 15 years old, I have rarely taken time off for vacations. As I progressed through the ranks in my industry, I continued working longer hours and taking on more responsibility, all in an effort to give my mind something to focus on. Recently, I hit a wall. I could not take on any more responsibilities. I could not physically do more things, and I was spiraling toward a hard wall of physical burnout. This forced me to take a step back, at which point I was faced head-on with the fact that my mental health was non-existent. Recently, I finally reached out to someone who I know cares about me and started actually opening up. It has been painful and honestly rather terrifying, but the alternative was to continue the pattern and face the consequences of that. I do not yet know what is going to unfold or how this will play out. The one point that has become very clear is that isolation and frenetic running are not the answer and will not yield positive results in the long term. For now, I am starting to work on the addictions and actually opening up and accepting the people who want to be in my life and who care about me. It sounds to me like you may be facing some challenges in your life, or someone close to you may be, which raises this question. I want to encourage you or anyone asking this to simply ask for help and open up to someone close or a therapist or psychologist. Story 43. They stop reaching out and then get hurt because no one reaches back. They disappear from group chats. Their "I'll reply later" turns into days, then weeks. They post things that sound like jokes but are not. They start saying, "Haha, I'm fine though," when everything in their voice says they are not. And the scariest part is they still smile because sometimes sadness wears a really convincing mask. Story 44. They are trying as hard as they can and doing everything right, but there are no proper support systems in their society to offer them the help they need. It is the path to breaking. Story 45. When they say everything is fine, they are fine. No matter the situation, they insist they are fine. Story 46. Man, it is really hard to realize it yourself if you have these issues. You have to see it right in front of you to understand that it is happening. Story 47. Trying to make peace with everyone in his life, my father reached out to more people in his last week than in 10 years prior. Flipping your life around out of nowhere, not in a slow, steady way that shows actual progress, but doing everything quickly and half-heartedly. When they stop talking about the future and only talk about the good times, this may not be subtle, but it is a commonly ignored sign. Story 48. When they suddenly appear very well after noticeably struggling for a while, it is a sign that they have given up. Story 49. Not leaving the bedroom or house for weeks or sometimes months, not showering for weeks, and either falling asleep at 7 p.m. or 7 a.m. Story 50. Relapses of any form, big things like self-harm and sobriety or smaller things like bed rotting and doom scrolling, skin picking, procrastination, stress eating, stealing, forgetting life necessities. Anything can be a relapse. 1 time is a mistake, 2 times is a pattern, 3 times is a habit. Pay attention to the little things. Story 51. They are a bit mad. Seriously though, mood swings, paranoia, delusions, and ramblings are potential signs. Without knowing the person or their history, it is hard to determine what falls outside the norm versus a potential mental health issue. Story 52. They start telling you they are being haunted by a supernatural spirit and that they performed a ritual where they burned its genital to kill it. Then they go into a long rant on how you are a non-believer and will suffer in hell for being an atheist. Story 53. If you are struggling with your mental health, you are losing. Fighting your brain will not help fix mental health issues. Story 54. A psychologist tells you that you are pre-psychotic, currently waiting for full-blown insanity, although I do not know if I already am. My issue is that I succumb to any injury uncritically. Do not try this at home. Story 55. I would say losing interest in the activities they used to enjoy, feeling exhausted all the time, and giving away belongings. Story 56. Wide range of responses. Some people become happy and playful because they know the pain will end soon. Some people withdraw from the public and friends. Others may suddenly walk into traffic. The brain is complicated, and there are as many responses as there are people. I have had a few friends die by suicide, and the common thread was a text or a call just before that seemed really deep and happy. Story 57. For me, it is losing all inhibitions, spending money I do not have, and making reckless life choices. These are not things I do when properly medicated. Story 58. Being in denial. Eugenia Cooney came to mind when I read your post for some reason. She is definitely losing her eating disorder battle and never addresses it. Story 59. My friend became very cheerful and hilarious. He constantly made us laugh whenever we saw him. It turned out he was going through a difficult time, and that was his way of coping. He is okay now. Story 60. It is in their eyes. The smile no longer reaches the eyes, and their facial expressions change when they think you are not looking. Story 61. Doing what I do and avoiding answering any, "How are you doing?" or saying something vague like, "I'm good." Story 62. Their therapists, psychiatrists, and care workers talk about them instead of with them. This means they believe the person is not capable of making important decisions themselves or that they are more concerned about risk than care. Both approaches have the same impact on the person involved, except that with one option, the person is aware. Story 63. I struggle with mental health and am getting proper help now. Here are some things I have noticed. Changes in weight. I tend to gain weight as I crave sweet food and chocolate more, and constantly snack. Some people do the opposite and rapidly lose weight. Grooming and hygiene. One of the first things I stop doing when I am going downhill is shaving my face. I usually shave every day, but as I go downhill it turns into once a week at best. The same with brushing my teeth. I just stop having the energy or drive to do it. Emotional outbursts. I am normally very calm and logical, but when I struggle I become erratic, rushing everything I do, lashing out, and losing my temper over small things, making mistakes with work I normally wouldn't. Withdrawal. I effectively hide, talk to my friends less, and assume I am just an inconvenience to them. Emotional numbness. This is very depression-related, but it is not quite sadness like a lot of people believe. It is feeling totally numb to emotions, a flat, static feeling. Things I know should make me happy just give me nothing and come with a total lack of enthusiasm. It can lead to doing out-of-character things just to feel anything. Fatigue. Being depressed or anxious is exhausting. I can sleep 11 hours at night and still need a 2-hour midday nap, and then still be exhausted. Restlessness. I cannot settle, fidget a lot, my eyes dart around, and I lose focus. I play video games often and find I lose focus and get bored after 10 minutes and want to switch to something else. This is all I can think of right now. I might add more later. If anyone needs to talk or find out about next steps from someone who has been at the edge, recovered, then relapsed into pure anxiety, feel free to message me. Mental health is important, and sometimes it helps to have someone tell you that it is not just you and there is help. Story 64. Isolating himself from friends, family, and relationships. No one notices that for a long time because they are just living their lives, and yours is not important. How can anyone at their best isolate themselves from everyone? Story 65. They support the Make America Great Again movement. I am not exaggerating. They are isolated, stuck in a single worldview, believe their neighbors are out to get them and ruin them, and choose to believe their personal truth or their leader's truth despite objective facts and reality. I support universal health care, especially universal mental health care. Everyone should have routine physical checkups as well as regular mental health checkups. Story 66. Unable to sleep. High or extreme energy levels. Taking on many additional tasks. High sex drive. Manic episodes can be very challenging. The crash into depression is one of the most difficult aspects of being bipolar. Story 67. They stop showering, stop taking care of themselves, eat only junk food, stop responding to messages, and do not leave the house. Ask me how I know. Story 68. Your typically downtrodden friend has suddenly become a beam of joy and happiness without any event or cause for such. Not good. Story 69. Not wanting to talk or see anyone. I lost a friend recently. Toward the end, she did not want to talk to or hang out with anyone. No, it was not suicide, just a tragic accident. Story 70. Wow. For people thinking they might be having an issue but are not sure, be careful when reading. It might send you down a spiral. Story 71. A comedian touched on this recently in the best way, and I wish I could remember her name. For most people experiencing sadness, we like to make dark jokes like, I missed the bus. Well, maybe it should just hit me. It's about knowing your people, their tone, and how their statements change from dark humor to, no, I missed the bus. I could just, nope, not today. Then a deep breath follows. What do you mean by not today? What does that deep breath signify? Buddy, do we need to talk? Like, have a serious conversation? Story 72. Reacting excessively to something. Not just overreacting with crying and anger, but laughing too hard too often. Story 73. As someone with first-hand experience, I can confirm you should look for a change in behavior. Someone mentioned shaking. That was true for me as well. Men are more likely to hide depression and anxiety than women, so be alert for such differences. Story 74. Well, the biggest red flags for me with somebody that I love very much were anger, crazy rants, flights of fantasy, and behavior that made no sense until you stepped back and saw it for what it really was. I hope she gets the help that she needs, but I think she is so stuck in her illness that I do not have a lot of hope for her. Story 75. By completely playing the victim and failing to see their role in the situation, they blame everyone else for their problems and ignore the fact that they are the common denominator in most issues. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.